Welcome to Stoked with Megan McPhail, the podcast that helps you get super effing jazzed about your work, life, and bank account. I'm your host, Megan McPhail, a former burnt-out emergency veterinarian that quit my hard-earned career to become a seven-figure business coach, entrepreneur, and elopement photographer. Now I'm living a life I absolutely love, full of travel, adventure, and financial abundance, and I am hell-bent on inspiring others to do the same. Are you ready to say goodbye to the 9-to-5 grind and start going after some big, bold dreams? Then let's dive into this week's episode. Hey, it's your host, Megan McPhail, and I have a super exciting episode. It's our first ever guest on this podcast. I have Jess Haney, who is a copywriter for creative service providers and coaches looking to launch and fill their group coaching programs. She is based out of Canada. She has a really cute dog. She's engaged to her sweet fiance, and she's also a copy coach in my Elopement Photographer Mastermind. And she's my secret weapon, you guys. I've been working with her since the very beginning of 2021, ever since I first launched my group coaching program and it didn't do well. I knew I needed somebody to help me write all the things that I sucked at writing, and enter Jess Haney into my life. And she basically took all my jumbled thoughts and turned them into emails and a sales page. And it's just been a magical relationship ever since. Welcome to the podcast, Jess.
Yay, I'm so excited to be here. And it's so wild to think how long ago that was.
Yeah, that's almost 3 years ago.
I know. And I feel like there's just been so much that has happened since then. So many launches and iterations of your program now into the mastermind. It's been quite the journey.
It's been a journey. It's been an evolution, and same with you and your business. I mean, you have grown.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were kind of starting out, I think, when I first hired you. And we've both kind of grown alongside each other. And it's been super cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been super fun.
So we are going to talk about pricing pages today, specifically for elopement photographers, because this was one of the things Jess and I worked on together that was a total game changer for my business, as well as all the folks that I've coached since then and in the Elopement Photographer Mastermind right now. So I mentioned that in January of 2021, I launched my first group coaching program, and it was basically a flop. It was called Six Figure Stoke. It was for elopement photographers to make six figures. I got one person to sign up. Shout out to Brittany. She's killing it, by the way. But I knew I needed somebody to help me write copy, and I knew that sales pages were super important. So after I met with Jess, and she wrote my sales page, and it was just amazing. And she's written all my sales pages since then. She's just she knows me better and my voice than I know myself at this point, I think. But when I realized how amazingly that sales page kind of presented the value of my program and what they were going to get, I thought, why can't I do this for my photography as well? What if we created a pricing page for my photography business that was written like a sales page? So I hired Jess to do that, and I'd never seen that before. And she was not a photographer specific copywriter, but she created that for me. Kind of tell me, Jess, how that was when we conspired to do that.
Yeah, so I remember you reaching out and you're like, hey, obviously the sales page for Six Figure Stoke was a success. And you're like, can you do this for my elopement photography business? And my immediate thought was no. I've never heard of that. I don't know that that's a thing, And you were like, I want it to just be exactly like a sales page. And I was like, okay, if you pitch it to me like that I can do. We can do that. And I just kind of got to work thinking, how would it be different to sell a group coaching program versus selling your services? And then we started talking, and you explained kind of your pricing psychology and how you were putting together your packages and presenting your packages to clients. And I was like, hey, well, that needs to go right on there. We need to put these prices right on there. That's something that I notice in the industry, outside of mastermind people, is the lack of prices on pages, or the price is just boom right there. And I knew that we needed to do something different. So yeah, we just kind of went back and forth like that until I was like, okay, I know what I need to do here. And we went for it.
Yeah. So we didn't call it a sales page necessarily. We call it the pricing page because couples that land on my website, they almost always go directly to the pricing page. And I don't call mine investment. I want them to go. I want them to go to my pricing page because that is what sells them on my services, on my value as not just an elopement photographer, but as a planner and kind of like the MC of their day and my personality and what I offer to them. So I'm basically building up my value on my pricing page thanks to Jess's copy before they see my prices. So when they do see my prices, it makes sense. It makes sense why I'm charging what I'm charging because I talk about all the things that I offer. And so now, because that was so successful for me, like between that pricing page and this pricing strategy that I created for elopements, my bookings, even though I was coaching at the time, my bookings went up thousands and thousands of dollars per booking. And I was like, I used to pull teeth trying to get people to book all day elopements, and they're booking them right away. They weren't batting an eye at like six, seven, eight, nine, $10,000 packages. It was a game changer. So then I started teaching it to all my coaching students, and they're booking things at five, six, $7,000 like immediately. So
Hmm.
it was just such a pivot in my coaching and my business as well. So because it changes the conversion rates and how much people are able to charge, I want you just to kind of like go over a little bit what this pricing page entails, why it's so freaking magical,
Hmm.
and how you kind of teach
Absolutely.
it to, because you are a coach in the Elopement Photographer Mastermind. So she is in there. She has a whole section on this pricing page. She audits people's websites once they update them. So she's at this point worked with dozens, hundreds
I'd say like 100.
photographers. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, 100 elopement photographers, at least, I would say, throughout all the iterations of, six-figure Stoke and then the mastermind.
Yeah. She sees a ton of websites, you guys.
A ton, yes. And it's so interesting to watch the evolution of like what the websites look like before the mastermind and then once they submit them. Cause I do go in and I creep on people when they first join just to get to know them, understand, who they are, where they're coming from, all these things. But with the pricing page specifically, of course, we can't go into like absolutely every single section because I think the lesson in the mastermind is like an hour or something. It's beefy because there are like 11 plus sections that you need. And the whole philosophy behind the pricing page and when I write a sales page is like we are writing it based on like psychology. This isn't something that I made up, like the way that a sales page needs to go. It is really based on what somebody needs to hear and the order that they need to hear it and the order that you need to introduce certain things in order for them to feel comfortable reading those things or to believe what you're saying or hook them in, right? So one of the things that we need to do when the conversation starts on the sales page, and this is one of the biggest things that I see people miss outside of the mastermind, is with this page, we really need to start and meet the couple where they're at.
Yes. This is such a huge pivot for so many people, this concept.
Yeah, and we talk about this all the time because what happens is a lot of people start their website, or let's say they do have an investments page, and they start trying to explain why eloping is the best choice. And what ends up happening when you do that is like the people who are browsing your website, and especially if they're going in and looking at the price of your services, they have decided they are eloping. So if you start to talk to them and say, here's why eloping is the best idea, and here's why it's better than a traditional wedding, and all of these things, you're not meeting them where they're at. It's like they've walked in the door, they're all the way on the other side of the room, and you're still standing at the door trying to like open it for them. And they're like, wait, why are you all the way back there? Like, we're here. We're ready to like move on into the kitchen and have drinks, And you're still like, I don't know, like, let me just like open the door for you. And it doesn't make any sense, right? So meeting your clients where they're at and being excited about it and showing off your personality like right at the top of that page is so important. And in this section as well, you want to identify your ideal client, because one of the biggest favors you can do for yourself and for your potential clients is like let people get off this page as fast as possible if they're not right for you.
I love how you said that. I've never heard it explained that way, but yeah, let them leave if they're
Yeah,
not the person.
let them get out of there. Like, you don't want the wrong type of client to fill out your contact form. You don't want them to make it all that way. Like, that's annoying for both you and them, right? So, let's say you only work with like the most absolutely like adventurous clients who want to like scale mountains. We're talking like you're going to go like paragliding off the side of a mountain with them. Like, let that be known right at the top of the page so that the people who are like, oh, I want to like drive up a mountain and pretend we hiked and have like a really light, chill day, those people are not your ideal clients. Let them go find somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I want to work with people I love, but I also want couples to have the best experience possible. And I truly think that that starts with them finding the right photographer for them.
Mhm.
Like, that's really what starts the whole amazing process for them. And there's the right photographer for all the couples, there's the right couples for all the photographers, there's enough business for everybody. So don't be afraid of being polarizing and, yeah, saying goodbye to the people that you're not going to mesh with and welcoming the people who are the perfect people for you.
Yeah, exactly. And in that same sort of breath, like up at the top of this page as well, we want to introduce the like biggest problem that you solve. Talking about problems in your copy and like introducing problems that you solve for your clients, this is something that's really going to hook them in, because once you've done all of the ideal client research that you need to do and you really figure what's the first or the biggest problem that your potential clients are running into right now, and you call that out and you're like, I understand that like you are experiencing this, or like I know that by now you've realized X, Y, and Z, and they're sitting there and they have come to you because they literally just experienced X, Y, and Z. Boom, they are hooked. They know that like you know them just as well as they know themselves.
Yes. And this is why this is so important for elopement photographers, guys. Couples who are eloping, they don't know what the heck they're doing. They have no idea how this concept works. You know, they are probably one of the first, and well, definitely the first in their family, maybe the first in their friend group who is doing this. They are probably traveling from out of town and they don't understand what the F they're doing. And so this is way different from weddings, where basically someone picks a venue and tries to find like a local photographer that's maybe shot there before or has cool photos, and that's about it. That's all there is. But with us elopement photographers, we wear a lot of hats. We do a lot of things for our couples, and our couples have no idea how to plan or execute an elopement, what it's supposed to look like, how to accomplish this in a place they've either never been to before or are traveling to. What day should they do it? Where should they do it? Like, what vendors should they? I mean, they just have tons and tons of questions, and we're going to kind of get into that because that's why this page is so freaking important, because you need to show these couples that you help with these things. Not just that you think elopements are the best way to get married and they're super freaking cool. You need to show these people how you are going to solve their problems and answer their questions. That's how you build value.
Exactly, exactly. And like, just going back to meeting them where they're at, if you are starting this page off being like, oh, eloping is so great and it's the best way to get married and blah, 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 and this person's coming to your website because they're like, oh my God, there is so much to plan in this. And I didn't realize how much I was still going to have to plan. Like, I thought I was just like running away to, say I do in the forest, like, quickie Vegas wedding. And then it's turned into this like bigger dream of theirs. They're going to be like, oh, this person doesn't understand me. This person is thinking the way that I was thinking weeks ago when we decided we were going to elope. So, again, like making sure that you're meeting them where they're at and introducing that first big problem that you solve for them that they've run into is going to set you apart from literally everybody who is not inside the mastermind. Guarantee you.
Yep.
And so, touching back on what Megan was saying, the fourth section of this pricing page is your benefits section. And this is a section where you shine. This is what is honestly like showing the bulk of the value of what you bring to the table for your clients. And what I see a lot of people do when they're like, "Oh, here's just like a list of stuff that you get from me," right? You get location scouting, you get vendor recommendations, you get this, you get my private guide of this, you get this, and they just have this bullet list of like all of these things. And while that's great, what people are actually going to see the value in is when you actually explain what that means to the client. So when I say that, what I mean by that is like, let's talk about something like location scouting. And if we go back to the fact that, you know, you've done all your customer avatar research, you know who your clients are. And let's say, for example, you know that all of your clients are coming from out of state, they're traveling there. You get to say, you know, you do location scouting for them. And what that means for them is that they're going to have their photos in the absolute most drop dead gorgeous places that you cannot find on Google because you are the one boots on the ground finding all these places. You're the local who knows how to do it. They're not going to have to spend time searching through like TripAdvisor and all these photos to try and figure out where they want to go. Like you are saving them a ton of time, and you know where you can take them off the beaten path where there's not going to be a ton of tourists. So they still get these like really sick photos that aren't going to be crowded with tons and tons of people in the background. And when you break it down like that, that is like, okay, location scouting is now sounding like a really sick deal.
Yeah, instead of just a bullet point.
Right? Instead of just being like location scouting and then letting the people have to figure out on their own what that means. Like these people are not in your business. And this is one thing that I always, always, always have to remind clients, whether it's like service provider, coach, anybody, is that nobody else has the like filler information about your business and your services that you do. So you're like, well, all of those things about location scouting, that's obvious, but we need to say the obvious. We need to put it out there and not wait for people to sit there and think about like, well, why would I need location scouting? Like, can't I just look it up on Google? But once you explain to them, like, no, you would have to crawl through TripAdvisor and read through all these things and find things that mention the season that you want to elope in and find people talking about what it was like at that season. You're like, I got all that. I
Yep.
know all of it. I'm here 24/7.
Yeah. Think of all the people in your life that are outside of the elopement photography industry that have no freaking idea what location scouting, quote unquote, even means. You know, like I'm thinking of my best friend, Anna, who lives in New Orleans, who, if she ever got married again, she would probably want to elope. She doesn't know that there's permits. She just sees pretty photos online and is like, that's what I want. She doesn't know what location scouting means and that we go out there and figure out what the parking situation is and where the trailhead is and where the nearest bathroom is. And like, she doesn't know all those logistics exist. It's obvious to us in the industry, but you have to spell those things out and how it benefits them. That's really like the big thing. Like, is it going to save them time? Does it save them stress? Because chances are they are switching from a wedding to an elopement because of the stress and the time it takes to plan a wedding.
Uh-huh.
So how are we going to save
Absolutely.
that from them with planning an elopement?
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm glad you touched on permits too, because that's a huge thing. Like, so many people are just like, oh, I get all the permits that you need. Do you know that means that you make my marriage legal? Like, if the park ranger were to roll up and be like, you guys can't be here, you know, you're saving my butt
Yeah.
on not getting kicked out of the park. Like, that's huge because you think that I'm going to be able to navigate. Like, I'm up in Canada. You think I'm going to be able to navigate like a park in like Utah's like website and call the office and do no, like
Yeah.
I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that a ranger doesn't roll up on us and be like, you guys need to leave because you don't have paperwork.
Mhm. Or you show up and there's another couple there that did get a permit for that
Yeah.
time.
Oh my God. Yeah. And you're like, oh, oops.
Whoops.
Now our timeline is all off. And
Mhm.
I mean, that's another huge thing that people breeze over is like the timeline creation. That is like your entire day planned from start to finish. You know when things take a little bit longer than expected, or how long it's going to take to get from point A to point B, or, if you're usually going to want some downtime after doing a certain hike. Like, there are so many things that and that you build into the timeline that, again, it probably just feels so second nature to you that somebody like me, I sit behind my computer all day. I know what it takes to walk from, like, my computer to my kitchen to have lunch. Like, that's the extent of what I know about a
Yeah.
timeline. I
Yeah.
don't know how long we need for the ceremony and getting from A to B or ready in the I have
Or when the
literally
lighting's
no
best, yeah.
light, like, all of it, right? And, if I send you a bunch of photos and I'm like, "I love these and I want a 4-hour package," and you're like, "Ma'am, these are like sunrise and sunset photos. We need 12 hours." Cool, guide me on that. So there in that section, it's so important to really like ask yourself, what does this mean for the couple that's eloping? Like, why do they care that I have added this thing? And like, don't leave anything unsaid.
I love that. Yeah. And like I know my section, it talks about how I can have a backup plan prepared at the drop of a hat, which I've actually gotten, reviews about because weather has changed or a trailhead is suddenly closed because of a rock fall or something like that. And I'm like prepared for what a brand new timeline location that's just as cool. And
Mhm.
I've gotten so many 5-star reviews because they're like, it was executed flawlessly. And like, those are the kinds of things that people who want to elope and just see these pretty photos, they don't know everything that goes into these things to make those pretty photos until we tell them and we force them to look at these things because they just want to see the price. But I don't want them judging us on just our prices. I want them to really see how much we help them, how we are going to answer questions they didn't even really know that they had. And we're going to make the whole planning process and the elopement day as, stress-free, seamless, fun as possible. That is worth a lot of money. That's worth a ton of money to people.
It's worth all the money, right? Because, like, who wants their day to just be like a big disaster because they hired the cheapest photographer who, like, was like, oh, I'm just gonna show up and shoot. And then, like, it's raining or the trailhead's closed or the park ranger rolls up on you and that person's like, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, it's a
Yeah.
nightmare.
Yeah. And I've heard stories from officiants who've dealt with photographers like that, and from couples who said they knew that they should have hired somebody more local that knew more about elopements. And like so many people just don't touch on this stuff on their websites that really, I mean, your website should be doing most of the work for you, like 90% of it.
It's literally your online salesperson, and that's why it's so important. It's just like a sales page for a coaching program, for a course, for anything. It's like this thing, it's what's always selling for you 24/7. Like, you're out shooting an elopement, this page is selling for you. You're taking a break or you're editing and culling, this thing is selling for you. You're on vacation, this page is selling for you. It's like getting you inquiries and answering questions that people have so that you don't have to sit there and like answer them all. That's why you have like an FAQ section that you continually add to as you're like, oh, I've had 3 people inquire and ask about this thing. Like, add that question into your FAQ, right? This page is so important for so many reasons, but that one to me is like, I don't have to DM and sell with every single person. Like, that's huge. That's so much time off your plate. And then by the time you get on the discovery call with the person, it's really just like a vibe check at that point.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I tell people all the time because a lot of people come to me and join the mastermind, and all of their trust building and kind of value building is done on that phone call that you're hoping somebody books with you. And for
Yeah.
me, all of that trust and value building is done before they ever even inquire with me. So by the time I get on the phone call with them, we are just hanging out as friends. They're already pretty much convinced they want to book me because my website did its job and they're okay with my 8-hour package already. They have already been kind of like dreaming about how their whole day is going to look. We kind of like plan it out together and it gets to be easy. It doesn't have to be a hustle. And I think that's what is so cool about this pricing page and the journey we take people through in the Elopement Photographer Mastermind because it gets to be easy. Like, it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to
Yeah.
hustle on Instagram. You don't have to hustle on these and like try to like prove yourself on these phone calls and Zoom calls with couples. You've done all that already. It's powerful and it's life changing. I mean, it changed my business. I was already coaching by the time I discovered all of this stuff. And I even saw a dramatic change in my business. It's so cool.
Yeah, and you just touched on something that, like, the last sort of piece of this page that I wanted to talk about was like when you actually lay out your packages, because what you said was like by the time the people get on the call, they're already like dreaming into the type of elopement that they want. And they're already sold on like the prices of your package, because on this page, and this is something actually when I'm doing the audits, when I'm reviewing people's pages, I always have to tell them to like take the buttons off too early on the page, because we don't actually want to give them an opportunity to fill out your contact form until after they've seen your packages and your prices, because you don't want people to submit your inquiry form unless they've seen your prices. Because if they have a $500, $1,500 budget and you're like, my packages start at 4,700 or 5 grand, you don't want them to inquire, right? But one of the big pieces about the packages is like writing that description of the package that goes beyond just the hours of the
Yeah.
package, right? So typically people will have like a 4 hour, an 8 hour, and then like a 12 hour or multi day package. And instead of just being like 4 hours of coverage, 8 hours of coverage, 12 hours of coverage, it's like, write what an elopement day might look like within 4 hours.
Yes.
Write what an 8 hour elopement might look like, you know, and you don't have to get super nitty gritty, but you want people to be able to dream into this, because they likely do have some kind of semblance, like, especially as they're reading down your page and they're seeing all of these things that you offer and they're seeing the cool photos of your clients, like doing these cool things, or, you know, in the A-frame cabin or whatever that looks like, they're dreaming into this. And when they read the descriptions of the packages, they're going to be like, that one sounds exactly like what we're looking for. And chances are that's not going to be your 4 hour package, even though it's the cheapest one. It's going to be that 8, it's going to be that 12. And then they're going to see the price. They're going to be primed with all of this information about what you offer, why it's so important, all of these things. They're going to see all your testimonials, your photos, your credentials, all these things. And then they see that price and they're honestly just like, that tracks. I'm still going to inquire.
Yes. And that's such a huge change that I did too. And I explained to everybody in the mastermind as well, is explaining the packages as experiences instead of just the hours of coverage. Cause you can get away with that as a wedding photographer and just be like, well, do you want 10, 8, or 6? You know, and it's like, just pick one. But like for an elopement, it's like, well, 10, 8, or 6, or like 10 or 8 or 8 or 6 or 4 or 2. Like, I don't know how much I need. I don't even know what
Yeah.
an elopement looks like, let alone how many hours I need. And I'm just supposed to choose. But instead, again, we're positioning ourselves as an expert and saying, like, okay, these are the number of hours, but each package gives you a different experience. 4 hours is enough to maybe get some getting ready photos, you know, a ceremony close by, and some portraits at golden hour. 8 hours, you can include a couple locations. We can stop at a brewery for lunch or an early dinner. Like there's a lot more going on there. 12 hours or multi-day. I mean, we can go everywhere that Moab has to offer. You can see everything. You're traveling from out of town. Like, let's see all of the sites and get photos in all of them. And we were going to have just a giant adventure. And basically, like presenting things that way is such a game changer that most people don't do. So this goes all the way back to how to market yourself, how to talk to your ideal client, knowing who your ideal client is and where they are in the process of booking their elopement. I mean, that's why it's so different to market yourself as an elopement photographer, because people, they just don't know how any of this works, and they're relying on us to be the experts. And especially if we're charging the prices that we're charging, which is, for me, like I want everybody charging over 5K for an elopement, if not 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And this is how we present that value. Because if somebody wants to do all the work themselves and hire a photographer just for a couple hours, they're going to see our page and be like, whoa, this person offers a lot more than I want. I really just want something cheap and easy. I'm not going to invest in this person. But for the couples that truly want to invest in this experience, which there are a lot of those couples, Todd and I are one of those couples. We spent a shit ton on our elopement. you know, there's lots of couples that want to spend a lot of money on an elopement and basically hire a photographer as both a vendor and a friend. And this is how you present your value to them. This is how they get to your prices. And no matter what it is, they understand that you're worth it.
Exactly. And like I said, with the way that this page is laid out, it's like it's based on psychology. It's literal sales psychology. It's presenting things in the order that people need to hear it, things that need to come immediately after. We're asking them questions that they're saying yes to in their head. So we're building that up. They're shaking their head yes at your page. There's all these things that we're doing to get them to a place where they're like super stoked to submit your inquiry form, and they're like waiting for you to message them back being like, yes, I'm available.
Yes, I love it. And it's a game changer for all of us. I'm so thankful for you, Jess. So Jess, again, is the copy coach in the Elopement Photographer Mastermind. She is my secret weapon. She does all the audits of everyone's websites. She's super thorough and detail oriented, which is what I love. And she's also in our Slack group answering questions about anything copy related. So that's like landing pages, Instagram bios, anything that involves words. She's there to help us out. She also hosts a monthly copy clinic where she kind of alternates between presenting a topic. So you've done topics on like ad copy, the whole like benefits features thing. What are some more of that you've done?
Yeah, we've done a ton.
It's been
Like,
like 2 years worth.
I know there's so many. We've done email sequences. So that's like what I have actually been reviewing quite a few of those lately are like, the email sequences that people are sending out after somebody inquires, and like what should that workflow look like, and how do you actually write an email? How do you write a subject line? How do you write a hook? So that could be for a subject line or for an Instagram caption that gets people to actually want to read what you're writing. Like,
Yes.
Google Ads. There have just been tons at this point.
You also do live, like every other month, you'll do like a live review where people will bring their websites, they'll bring Instagram captions, whatever they want you to have their eyes on, emails, and she'll review things live so that we can kind of see how it all works and why she's giving the recommendations that she's giving. It's just been so cool to have you in there because so much of marketing is based on writing. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know I've learned so much from you. And like, I feel like sometimes I can like do emails now because I read so many of the ones that you've written for me. It's like my voice, but like, I don't know. It's weird. Like I can kind of like copy the cadence that you use, which I know you were like using my voice to write those emails, but like you just know it better than even I do. But yeah, it's just been so great having you in there because you just help with so many things. And like I could fumble my way through helping people with some of this stuff, but I don't know the best stuff. And like the fact that you also help people outside of our industry is so cool, and also why I love working with you, because you give insight to what's working for other people, and you can like kind of create new ideas for us. Because sometimes if it's just photographers helping photographers, we get stuck in these little like tunnel
It's
vision
like a
type
bubble.
stuff. Yes, it's a
Yeah.
bubble or echo chamber or something. And like,
Yeah.
I like bringing in some like new eyes and ideas and stuff like that. What's been your favorite thing about working in the mastermind and working with elopement photographers?
Ooh, honestly, I think it's when people are so nervous, thinking that like their market is too saturated to raise their prices or that their clients won't pay, and getting to see that transformation in that wins channel. I'm obsessed with it. But the other thing is when I get to give very specific feedback, like somebody's like, this thing isn't working. Can you take a look at it? And I give feedback. And within like a day, they're like, I don't know if this is coincidence, but I just got an inquiry. And I'm like, that's not a coincidence. That's a correlation. Like, it's so fulfilling for me. And I just get to nerd out as if I get paid to just be a huge nerd over
Yeah.
here. Like when Todd posted and was like, hey, this probably like doesn't really matter much, but is there a difference between naming your page like pricing versus investment versus like whatever packages versus this? And he gave like 4 different words. And I was like, oh
We're
yeah,
going deep on this.
let's talk about this. And I was just like, I get to spend 20 minutes talking about why different words mean different things. It's so cool.
I love it. I love the nerding out part, and that you're such an expert and that you've like continued to grow as a copywriter and learn and stuff like that. And you're so supportive and like such a cheerleader for everybody. It's just so cool. I just love having you a part. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Jess.
Yeah, thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
and hopefully this gives people insight on like some of the stuff that we do in the mastermind. Like we get deep, but we also want you to do just the work that you need to show your value and get booked. You said that the pricing page, was like an hour-long video, but really it's like just the things that we really think you need to do to say your value. And she really walks you through it and then audits and looks over it after you do it. So you have practice kind of working on your copy on your own, but then you also have Jess there to help you, every step of the way as well. And then me as well. I'm just not the copy genius that Jess is. So anybody is hearing this and is like, man, I want to join the Elopement Photographer Mastermind, you should definitely head to my website. I'm really doing a push right now to get as many people to join as possible, because booking season is coming up in January and February. And that is a huge time for bookings. And you still have time to do these website tweaks before January so that you can basically make 2024 like your 6-figure elopement year. So if you have any questions about that, DM me or head to my website, meganmcphail.com. And Jess, where can people find you?
Well, I hang out most on Instagram. I'm at Jess Haney Copy. I'm always in my stories. Don't expect me in your feed a lot. I am newly obsessed with Threads, so connect with me on there too. And then my website is jesshaney.com. So pop into my DMs, say hi, and hopefully I will see you inside the mastermind, and I'll be sending you private Loom video reviews of all your copy.
Yay, cool. Thank you so much, Jess.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Stoked with Megan McPhail. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, and tell a friend. If you're looking for more inspiring content, check us out on Instagram at Stoked with Megan McPhail. And to learn more about my business coaching and how I can personally help you quit your 9-to-5, visit my website at meganmcphail.com. I hope this leaves you feeling stoked. See you next week.